I was starving, desperate, trying to stand in that meeting when everything went black. But before I hit the ground, tattooed arms caught me. Robert S. Jacob, the feared Mafia boss, held me like I was made of glass. And when he discovered why I'd collapsed, his eyes turned lethal. What he did next changed my entire life. Before we dive in, I need your help. We're trying to reach 5,000 subscribers, and every single one matters. So if you enjoy this story, please hit that subscribe button. And I'd love to know. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're listening from. It means everything to know you're out there. Now, let me tell you how I went from surviving on nothing to being protected by the most powerful man in the underworld. I knew I was in trouble the moment I tried to stand. The hunger pangs hit like knives, a sharp, twisting pain that stole my breath. I gripped the edge of the conference table, my knuckles going white as I fought to keep my composure. Around me, voices continued discussing quarterly projections and revenue forecasts, numbers and percentages that suddenly seemed meaningless compared to the hollowness gnawing at my insides. Don't faint, don't let them see, don't show weakness. I've been repeating those words to myself for 5 days now. 5 days since Marcus cleaned out my checking account. 5 days since I'd had a proper meal. 3 days since the eviction notice appeared on my door. Every moment felt like surviving on borrowed time, borrowed strength, borrowed everything. The fluorescent lights of the boardroom flickered overhead, and suddenly the walls seemed to tilt. I blinked hard, trying to focus on anything: the polished mahogany table, the city skyline visible through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the faces of my colleagues presenting financial data, like everything was normal, like the world wasn't spinning, like I wasn't about to shatter into 1,000 pieces right here in front of everyone. But one person noticed. Robert S. Jacob sat at the head of the table, his powerful frame dominating the space even when he was perfectly still. I felt his dark eyes on me, sharp and assessing, the way a predator watches prey, except I wasn't sure if I was the prey or if he was seeing something else entirely, something that made his jaw tighten almost imperceptibly. I needed to sit back down. My legs were trembling now, and the room was definitely spinning. This was bad. This was so bad. I couldn't collapse here, not in front of everyone, not in front of him. Robert S. Jacob wasn't just my boss, he was the boss, the man who controlled half the organized operations on the East Coast, whose name made hardened criminals look over their shoulders. Tattoos covered his forearms, intricate designs that disappeared under his crisp white dress shirt and black vest, and his face. God, his face was the kind that made you forget how to breathe. Sharp features, dark beard, eyes that could strip you bare or freeze you solid depending on his mood. He was dangerous, powerful, and terrifying in equal measure, and right now those intense eyes were fixed on me with a focus that made my already unsteady heart race. I tried to take a step toward my chair. My body had other plans. The world tilted violently, and I felt myself falling, the polished floor rushing up to meet me. This is it, I thought. I'm going to hit the ground in front of everyone, and they'll know. They'll know I'm not holding it together. They'll know I'm weak. They'll know I've been lying. But the floor never came. Strong arms caught me mid-fall, wrapping around my waist with surprising gentleness. The scent of expensive cologne filled my senses, something dark and woodsy, as I was pulled against a chest that felt like solid stone. My cheek pressed against crisp cotton, and beneath it, I could hear the steady, powerful rhythm of a heartbeat. "I've got you." Robert's voice rumbled through his chest, low and controlled, but there was something else underneath, something almost protective. I tried to speak, to apologize, to explain, but the words wouldn't come. My vision swam, darkness creeping in at the edges. I heard gasps around the room, the scrape of chairs, hurried footsteps. "Everyone out, now." Robert's command cut through the chaos like a blade. No one questioned it. No one ever questioned Robert S. Jacob. I felt myself being lifted, cradled against his chest as if I weighed nothing. Through my hazy consciousness, I heard the rush of footsteps, whispered conversations quickly silenced, the heavy boardroom door closing with finality. "I'm sorry," I managed to whisper, my voice barely audible. "I'm fine. I just need a minute." "Don't lie to me, Laura." His voice was firm, but not harsh. "When's the last time you ate?" The question hung in the air. I wanted to lie, to brush it off, to maintain the facade I'd been desperately holding together, but my body betrayed me, a sharp pang of hunger answering for me. Yesterday. I had something yesterday." Another lie, and from the way his jaw tightened, he knew it. The elevator ride felt surreal. I drifted in and out of awareness, catching glimpses of polished mirrors, brass fixtures that probably cost more than my monthly rent used to be. Robert held me steady, one arm supporting my back, the other beneath my knees. I should have insisted on walking, should have demanded he put me down, but I couldn't find the strength. "You've lost weight," he said quietly, his eyes fixed ahead. "Over the past 3 weeks, I've watched you fade. Dark circles under your eyes, your clothes are hanging looser. You stopped eating lunch in the break room, stopped attending after-work gatherings." I turned my head slightly to look up at him, shocked. You noticed?" Something flickered across his face, an emotion I couldn't quite read. "I notice everything about my employees, Laura, especially the ones who are good at their jobs, and especially when they're suffering." The elevator chimed, doors opening to reveal a private hallway. Expensive artwork lined the walls, leading to a single set of double doors at the end. His penthouse. My embarrassment intensified. "Mr. Jacob, this really isn't necessary. I can go home." "And do what? Collapse in your apartment with no one to help you?" He pushed through the doors with his shoulder, carrying me into a space that stole what little breath I had left. Floor-to-ceiling windows dominated the far wall, offering a panoramic view of the city spread below like a glittering kingdom. The decor was masculine but refined. Dark leather, exposed brick, modern art pieces that probably cost 6 figures. Everything screamed power, control, wealth. Robert settled me carefully on a leather sofa that felt like butter against my skin. He stepped back, pulling out his phone with practiced efficiency. "Prepare something light but nutritious, now," he said into the phone, his tone leaving no room for discussion. He ended the call and immediately made another. "I need you at the penthouse, immediately." A doctor. He was calling a doctor for me. "Robert, Mr. Jacob, please, this is too much." "It's not enough." He pocketed his phone and sat on the coffee table across from me, close enough that our knees almost touched. His intense eyes fixed on mine, and I felt completely exposed. "What's going on, Laura? And don't tell me nothing." I opened my mouth, a dozen excuses ready. "I've just been busy, work stress, nothing to worry about." But under that unwavering gaze, the lies died on my tongue. "I'm fine, really, just been going through some things." "Laura." My name on his lips was a warning and a plea. "I may not be a good man, but I'm not blind. Talk to me." The door opened, and a distinguished man in his 50s entered, Robert's second in command, Dante, I recognized from company meetings. He carried a tablet and moved with the quiet efficiency of someone who'd worked for Robert for years. "Sir?" Dante nodded, then glanced at me with something that might have been concern. "Stay," Robert ordered. To me, he said, "Whatever you tell me stays in this room. You have my word." Minutes later, a chef appeared with a tray. The smell of soup, something rich and savory, made my stomach clench so hard it hurt. My eyes began to water, betraying just how desperately hungry I was. Robert placed the tray on my lap, his movements gentle. "Eat." I picked up the spoon with trembling hands. The first taste exploded across my tongue. Warmth, flavor, sustenance. Before I could stop myself, tears began streaming down my face. Not delicate tears, ugly, desperate sobs that shook my shoulders as I tried to eat and cry simultaneously. "I'm sorry," I choked out between bites, mortification washing over me. "I'm so sorry. This is so unprofessional." "Stop apologizing." Robert's hand covered mine, stilling the spoon. When I looked up, his expression had softened in a way I'd never seen. "Just tell me what happened." And somehow, with his hand warm over mine and food in my stomach for the first time in days, the wall I'd built began to crumble. "My ex-partner, Marcus, he drained my accounts, all of them, my checking, savings, even the emergency fund I'd hidden. He knows my passwords, my security questions. He took everything." Robert's expression darkened, but he stayed silent, letting me continue. "The eviction notice came 3 days ago. My landlord called, said I was 2 months behind, but I wasn't. I paid for it. Or I thought I did. Marcus must have..." I shook my head, taking another spoonful just to have something to do with my hands. I know I should have said something, should have reported it, but he works for Costello Imports. He said he had connections, that no one would believe me over him. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Robert stood slowly, pulling out his phone, and when he spoke, his voice was pure ice. "Dante, find everything on Marcus Reed. I want his location, his finances, his connections, every phone call, every email, every person he's spoken to in the past year. I want to know what he had for breakfast, and I want it within an hour." "Considered it done," Dante replied, already typing on his tablet. Robert turned back to me, and despite the fury radiating from him, his eyes held something else when they met mine. Something protective, possessive even. "You're staying here tonight. No arguments." I should have protested, should have maintained some shred of independence, but I was so tired, so completely exhausted from trying to hold everything together with nothing but willpower and desperation. "Okay," I whispered. Robert nodded, satisfaction crossing his features. He sat back down, closer this time, and something in his proximity made me feel anchored, safe. For the first time in months, I felt something I'd almost forgotten. Safe. I woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, momentarily disoriented by the unfamiliar weight of Egyptian cotton sheets against my skin. The bedroom was enormous, larger than my entire apartment, decorated in muted grays and cream with abstract art that probably cost more than my annual salary. Then memory crashed over me like a wave. Marcus, the bruises on my wrist, Robert's penthouse, his quiet fury and unexpected gentleness. I sat up slowly, my body stiff from tension I'd carried for so long I'd forgotten what relaxation felt like. The guest suite was silent except for the distant hum of the city 40 floors below. Someone had left my clothes folded on a chair, freshly pressed. My phone sat on the nightstand, plugged in and charging. The smell of coffee drifted under the door. I dressed quickly, running fingers through my tangled hair, and ventured out into the hallway. The penthouse looked different in daylight, somehow less intimidating. The art was still intimidating, the furniture still sleek and modern, but morning light softened the edges. I found Robert in the kitchen. He stood at the stove in dark slacks and a gray vest, his white sleeves rolled to his elbows, exposing intricate tattoos that wound up his forearms. I'd never seen him this casual. At the office, he was always perfectly buttoned up, every inch the corporate titan. This version, barefoot, cooking eggs, his dark hair slightly mussed, was dangerously human. "Coffee's fresh," he said without turning around. "Cream's in the fridge, sugar in the cabinet if you take it." I poured myself a cup, watching him work. "You cook?" My chef doesn't start until 8. He plated 2 omelets with practiced efficiency. You needed to eat. The domesticity of it struck me as absurd. Robert Blackwood, billionaire CEO, rumored to have connections to half the power players in the city, making me breakfast in his kitchen. The same man whose reputation preceded him like a warning, ruthless in business, dangerous to cross, impossibly wealthy, and impossibly isolated. "Sit," he commanded, gentler than his words suggested. We ate in silence for a few minutes, the awkwardness broken only by the clink of silverware. I kept stealing glances at his tattoos, geometric patterns, symbols I didn't recognize, elegant and dark. "They're Norse," he said, catching me looking. "Old protection runes. I was young and dramatic." "They suit you." His mouth quirked. "That's generous." Before I could respond, the elevator chimed. A man stepped out, tall, scarred, and with the bearing of someone who'd seen violence and wasn't afraid of it. He carried a tablet and moved with lethal grace. "Dante," Robert acknowledged. "Results?" "Everything you asked for." Dante's voice was gravel and smoke. He glanced at me, something like sympathy flickering across his hard features. "Morning, Miss Chen." Robert took the tablet, his expression darkening as he scrolled. The silence stretched, taut like a wire. I set down my fork, appetite vanishing. "Tell me," I quieted. Robert looked up, his gray eyes unreadable. Then he slid the tablet across the counter. Marcus Reed's face stared back at me from what looked like an intelligence dossier. Below it, financial records, text messages, photographs. I scrolled with trembling fingers, my world narrowing to the screen. "He's connected to the Castellano family," Robert said flatly. "It has been 3 years. They planted him in the city specifically to gather intelligence on my operations." I couldn't breathe. "What?" "You weren't random, Laura. He targeted you because of your position in my organization, your access, your proximity to me." The evidence was damning. Bank statements showing systematic draining of accounts I didn't know existed. Marcus had opened credit cards in my name, maxed them out, left me with the debt. Text messages to his handlers discussing me like I was a commodity. "She trusts me completely. Give me 2 more months and I'll have access to Blackwood's personal files." Photographs of us together, annotated with dates and locations. 3 years of my life, built on lies. "He's been using you," Robert continued, his voice dangerously soft. "Financially abusing you. The accounts, the credit cards, it's all documented. And these texts," he pointed to a particularly vicious exchange, "he was threatening you, systematically isolating you. Classic manipulation." I felt sick. I knew he was controlling, but this, my voice broke. "I'm just a pawn. I've been a pawn in some organized crime scheme." "You're not a pawn." Robert's intensity made me look up. "You're a person he victimized. There's a difference." Dante shifted. "Boss, the Castellanos are expecting their next report from Reed in 48 hours. Robert's jaw tightened, a muscle jumping. I'd seen him angry in business meetings, cold, calculated fury that made grown men sweat. This was different. This was personal. "You're going to hurt him," I whispered. "You're going to—" "No," Robert cut me off. "I'm not a monster, Laura. I don't need violence when I have power." He stood, radiating controlled rage. "I'm going to destroy him legally, financially, completely. When I'm done, he'll wish I'd just broken his legs." "Robert." "First, I'm freezing every account he has, every asset. By noon today, he'll have nothing." His voice was clinical, detached. "Second, I'm sending an anonymous tip to the FBI with evidence of his Castellano connections. Let them handle the criminal charges. Third, I'm making sure the Castellanos know their boy got sloppy, got caught, and they'll sever ties to protect themselves." He turned to Dante. "Coordinate with our contacts at the Bureau. Full evidence package, untraceable source. I want him arrested by Friday." "Consider it done." and make sure the Castellanos understand that anyone who comes near my people again will regret it. My people. The possessiveness in those words shouldn't have thrilled me, but it did. Robert turned back to me, his expression softening slightly. He'll never touch you again, Laura, never threaten you, never even speak your name. By the time I'm finished, Marcus Reed will be a ghost in this city, and you will be safe. I should have been terrified. This was the side of Robert that made people whisper, the power that could unmake lives with a phone call. But sitting in his kitchen, watching him promise to dismantle the man who'd spent 3 years breaking me down piece by piece, I didn't feel fear. I felt seen. Why? The question escaped before I could stop it. Why do all this for me? Something flickered in his eyes. Vulnerability quickly shuddered. Because someone should have done it sooner. Because you deserve better than what he gave you. Because... He stopped, jaw working. Because I won't let anyone hurt what's mine. The air between us crackled. What's mine? I should have been terrified of what Robert could do, of the darkness in him, of the power he wielded so easily. Instead, I was grateful that someone finally saw me, really saw me, and chose to fight for me, even if that someone was the most dangerous man I'd ever met. 3 days in Robert Blackwood's penthouse, and I'd learned more about him than most people discovered in years. The guest suite had become my sanctuary. Each morning I woke to the smell of breakfast prepared by Robert's chef, a cheerful woman named Marie who seemed delighted to have someone to cook for besides Mr. Blackwood and his black coffee. Lunch appeared on schedule. Dinners were elaborate affairs that Robert sometimes joined me for, though he rarely ate much himself. I watched his world from the edges, the security team that rotated shifts, the endless phone calls conducted in his office, his voice carrying through the penthouse, sometimes sharp, sometimes smooth as silk, always commanding. Glimpses of his empire through overheard conversations, real estate deals, corporate acquisitions, political connections that made my head spin. He checked on me daily, morning coffee, evening check-ins, brief conversations that felt weighted with things unsaid. On the 3rd day, his personal physician arrived. Dr. Samuels was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and efficient hands. She examined me thoroughly in the guest suite, asking questions while Robert hovered in the doorway like a dark guardian angel. Severe malnutrition, she announced finally, making notes on her tablet. Stress-induced exhaustion, early signs of anemia. She looked up at Robert. How long has she been under this level of stress? Years, I answered quietly. Dr. Samuel's expression softened. Well, you're in good hands now. Prescribed rest, proper nutrition, stress reduction. Continue what you're doing, Mr. Blackwood. The care is clearly helping. Robert listened intently to every instruction, asking detailed questions about supplements, meal plans, warning signs to watch for. The intensity of his focus made my chest tight. After the doctor left, I found him in his office, staring at her written recommendations. I'm going to be fine, I said from the doorway. You should never have gotten this bad. His voice was rough. Someone should have noticed. You noticed, I wanted to say. Instead, what's happened with Marcus? Robert gestured to a chair. I sat while he pulled up files on his computer, turning the screen toward me. His accounts are frozen, warrants issued for fraud, identity theft, conspiracy. The Castellano family disavowed him when they realized how reckless he'd been. He's fled the city, effectively in hiding. I stared at Marcus's mugshot from a traffic stop 2 days ago, his face gaunt, eyes wild. The man who'd controlled my life for 3 years, reduced to a fugitive. Relief flooded through me, followed by anger so intense it stole my breath. Then grief, sharp and unexpected, for the time I'd lost, the person I'd been before him. Laura? Robert's voice gentled. I'm okay. It's a lot. Take your time. That evening, restless and overwhelmed, I found Robert on the penthouse balcony. The city sprawled below us, a carpet of lights against the darkness. He stood at the railing in short sleeves, despite the cool air, lost in thought. "Can't sleep?" he asked without turning. "Too much in my head." I joined him at the railing, keeping careful distance between us. "How long have you been standing out here?" "An hour, maybe 2. He glanced at me. "I do my best thinking at night." We stood in comfortable silence, the kind that felt rare and precious. The vulnerability of darkness made me brave. "You said you'd been watching me for months." Robert's jaw tightened. For a moment, I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "I saw you in that first financial meeting last spring. You challenged Harrison's quarterly numbers." I remembered. The CFO had been furious. "You were right. His projections were inflated by 15%. Everyone in that room knew it, but they were too afraid to question him. You did it anyway, calmly, with evidence, without backing down." He turned to face me fully. "I've been watching you since then." My heart hammered. "That's why you knew. About Marcus, about everything." "I noticed what happens in my company. I noticed you were brilliant. I noticed you stopped smiling. I noticed the weight loss, the exhaustion, the way you flinched when your phone rang. I noticed too late." "You noticed enough." The air between us felt charged, dangerous. I was acutely aware of how close he stood, the warmth radiating from him, the way the city lights caught in his gray eyes. "I have a proposition," he said, breaking the moment. "Professional." I raised an eyebrow. Should I be worried? "Chief Financial Strategist, new position, direct report to me, substantial salary increase, your own office adjacent to mine, protected, secure." He held my gaze. "I want you where your talent deserves to be." "Robert, before you argue," he cut me off, "this isn't charity. I don't do charity in business. You're brilliant at what you do. That meeting last spring, you saved the company from a disastrous quarter because you had the courage to speak truth to power. I'm not rescuing you, Laura. I'm putting you where you belong." I wanted to protest, to claim it was too much, too fast, but the fierce certainty in his voice stopped me. He believed every word. "You really think I can do this?" "I know you can." He moved closer, not touching but near enough that I could feel the heat of him, the way the city lights caught in his gray eyes. "The question is whether you believe it." I thought of Marcus, of 3 years spent small and afraid, of the woman I'd been before him, confident, ambitious, unafraid, and the woman I could be again. What would the position entail? Robert's mouth curved, not quite a smile, but close. Everything. Financial strategy, major acquisitions, direct access to all company operations. You'd work closely with me on every significant decision. Closely? Very closely. His voice dropped. Intimate. "I trust few people, Laura. I'm offering you my trust." The weight of that settled over me. Robert Blackwood's trust wasn't given lightly. It was currency, power, danger, and protection all rolled into one. "I accept." Satisfaction flickered across his face, followed by something deeper, possession perhaps, or promise. He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away, and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. His fingers lingered against my jaw. "Get some rest, Laura. Tomorrow we start building your future." I nodded, not trusting my voice. As I turned to leave, his next words stopped me. "Our future." I looked back. He stood silhouetted against the city lights, powerful and alone, and looking at me like I was something precious he'd finally found. I didn't know then that he meant it literally, that he'd already decided, with the ruthless certainty he applied to every acquisition, that I belonged to him. And I didn't know that I'd already decided the same about him. My new office was a revelation. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city from the 42nd floor, just one below Robert's penthouse. Modern furniture in sleek blacks and grays, sophisticated without being cold. A massive desk with dual monitors already set up with my credentials, abstract artwork on the walls, and my breath caught when I recognized them. The pieces I'd mentioned admiring in a gallery 3 months ago. Casual conversation with Robert in an elevator. He'd remembered. I turned slowly, taking it all in. A coffee station in the corner with my preferred brand already stocked, an ergonomic chair adjusted to my exact specifications, bookshelves waiting to be filled, and there, in the wall adjacent to Robert's office, a private door. Do you approve? I spun to find him in that doorway, leaning against the frame with his arms crossed. Gray suit today, perfectly tailored, tattoos hidden beneath expensive fabric. Robert, this is... I gestured helplessly. It's too much. It's exactly what you deserve. He moved into the office, hands in his pockets. The coffee setup was Marie's suggestion. She said you drink 4 cups before noon. The artwork, a slight smile, that was me being self-indulgent. You looked happy when you saw them. I didn't know what to say. The thoughtfulness of it, the attention to detail, it was overwhelming. Thank you, I managed finally. Get settled. We have a strategy meeting at 10. He headed back to his office, then paused. Laura, welcome to the executive floor. The first week was a whirlwind. I dove into my responsibilities with a hunger I'd forgotten I possessed. Robert's legitimate operations were vast. Real estate development, tech investments, entertainment ventures, import-export businesses that spanned continents. I analyzed financial strategies, identified inefficiencies, proposed bold restructuring plans that made executives twice my age sweat. And Robert watched it all with satisfaction that bordered on pride. But I wasn't naive. I saw the edges of things, the deals that didn't quite add up, the shell corporations with murky purposes, the legitimate businesses masking operations that existed in shadows. I made a choice: focus on the legal aspects, do my job brilliantly within the boundaries I could control, don't ask questions I didn't want answers to. It was compromise, cowardice, or survival, maybe all 3. The private door between our offices became routine. Robert would appear with questions, file reviews, and requests for my analysis. Sometimes he'd just stand there, watching me work with an intensity that made my skin flush. You're staring, I said without looking up from my screen one afternoon. I'm observing, there's a difference. But I heard the amusement in his voice. Other times, I'd find reasons to knock on his door, his signature on a deal, excuses to be near him that became increasingly transparent. On Tuesday, he brought me lunch personally. You're still recovering, he said, setting down a container from an expensive bistro. Humor me. It's been a week, Robert, I'm fine. Humor me anyway. He waited until I opened the container before leaving. I noticed colleagues whispering. The assistants exchanged glances. Everyone watched how Robert looked at me, the unprecedented access I had, the private door that stayed unlocked. Let them whisper. I was too busy being alive again to care. Thursday night, I worked late. The executive floor was empty except for security, the city glittering below my windows. I was deep in projections when Robert appeared in the doorway, jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up. It's past 9, he observed. Almost finished. Laura, he moved into my office, sat on the edge of my desk. You don't have to prove anything. I leaned back in my chair, meeting his eyes. Maybe I'm proving it to myself. Something shifted in his expression. Tell me about before Marcus. What did you dream about? Why? Because I want to know who you were, who you're becoming again. So I told him about graduating top of my class, about the ambition that had burned in me, about wanting to build something significant, about the woman I'd been before fear became my constant companion. Robert listened without interrupting, his gray eyes never leaving my face. And you? I asked when I finished. What did you dream about? I didn't dream. I executed. He was quiet for a moment. I built an empire from nothing, Laura. Trusted no one. I needed no one. It was safer that way. Was? His gaze intensified. Things change. The air thickened between us. Robert stood, moved closer until he was right there, his hand coming up to brush my cheek. My breath caught. Laura, Then he pulled back, jaw tight with restraint. "Not yet," he said roughly. "Not while you're still recovering. Not while there's any question that you might feel obligated." Frustration and appreciation warred in my chest. "Robert?" "When something happens between us," he cut me off, his voice low and sure, "I want you to be strong, certain. Choose me because you want to, not because you feel you owe me. And if I already? Soon, but not tonight." He left through the private door, and I sat there trembling with want and respect, and something deeper I wasn't ready to name. Friday afternoon, I discovered my shadows. 2 men, discreet but present, one in the lobby when I arrived, another near my car, professional, careful, always watching. I stormed into Robert's office without knocking. "You put security on me?" He looked up from his computer, unsurprised by my entrance. "Yes." "Without asking?" "It's non-negotiable, Laura." He stood, came around his desk. "Marcus might be gone, but the Castellanos might still see you as a vulnerability, as leverage against me. I'm not helpless. I know you're not helpless. That's not the point. The point is that you're important to me, and I protect what's mine. You're not mine, aren't you?" The question hung between us, charged and dangerous, because he was right. Somewhere in the last 2 weeks, I'd become his, and he'd become mine. But I wasn't ready to admit that yet. "I need my independence," I said instead. "And you have it, in every way that matters, but your safety is mine to ensure." He moved closer, not touching. "I'm not Marcus, Laura. I'm not controlling you. I'm protecting you. There's a difference." "Is there?" "Yes, absolute certainty. Control is about fear. Protection is about care. If you want me to remove the security, I will, but I'm asking you, as someone who's seen what these people can do, to let me keep you safe." I searched his face, seeing genuine concern beneath the commanding exterior. This wasn't about ownership. It was about fear, his fear of losing something he'd decided mattered. "Fine," I said finally, "but they keep their distance. I won't have them hovering." "Agreed." I turned to leave, then stopped. "Robert, thank you for asking, even if you had already decided." His expression softened. "You're welcome." That night, lying in the guest suite I still hadn't left, I admitted the truth to myself. I was falling for a man I shouldn't want, living a life I never imagined, dancing at the edges of something dangerous and intoxicating, and for the first time in years, I felt truly alive. 2 weeks into my new position, and I'd stopped pretending I was living in Robert's guest suite temporarily. My clothes filled the closet, my books lined the shelves. Marie asked my preferences for weekly groceries. The penthouse had become home in a way my old apartment never had, and neither Robert nor I acknowledged the significance of that shift. Professionally, I was thriving. The health that had eluded me for years returned with proper nutrition and the absence of constant fear. I'd restructured 3 major deals, identified 2 acquisitions that would net the company millions, and earned the grudging respect of executives who'd initially dismissed me as Robert's charity case. But the tension between us was becoming unbearable. Every longing glance across conference tables, every almost touch when he handed me documents, every charged conversation that meant more than the words suggested. We were circling something inevitable, and the waiting was exquisite torture. "I need you in Chicago," Robert said Friday morning, appearing in my office doorway. "High-stakes negotiation with the Moretti Group. 3 days, private jet leaves at 6. My pulse jumped. The Moretti deal? That's massive. Which is why I need my chief financial strategist. His eyes held mine. "Pack for business dinners and cold weather. I'll have my assistant book your hotel room." "Connecting to yours?" The words escaped before I could stop them. Robert's jaw tightened. "If you'd like, I would." The air thickened. Then he nodded once and disappeared back into his office, leaving me trembling with anticipation. The private jet was obscene luxury, leather seats, full bar, a cabin attendant who materialized with drinks before I could ask. Robert worked during the flight, reviewing contracts while I analyzed financial projections. Professional, controlled, but I felt every glance he threw my way. Chicago's skyline glittered in the darkness as we landed. A car waited on the tarmac, whisking us to a hotel that made Robert's penthouse look modest. Our suite, because of course it was a suite, not rooms, occupied the top floor. 2 bedrooms connected by a shared living space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. "Tomorrow night's dinner is crucial," Robert said, pouring us both scotch. "The Morettis are old school, particular about who they do business with. They need to see that our operation is sophisticated, trustworthy, and legal?" He smiled slightly. "The parts that matter to them will be." I should have pressed, should have asked what parts didn't matter. Instead, I accepted the scotch and changed for dinner. The negotiation dinner was a masterclass in power dynamics. The Morettis, 2 brothers and their financial advisor, met us at an exclusive restaurant with no menu and waiters who moved like ghosts. Robert made introductions, and I felt their assessment, their skepticism about my age and position. Then the numbers started. I walked them through financial structures so complex they required 3 different legal jurisdictions, explained tax implications, projected growth, risk mitigation strategies. I anticipated every question, countered every concern, and rebuilt their hesitation into confidence. Across the table, Robert watched me with barely concealed pride. "Your strategist knows her business," the older Moretti said finally. "She's the best in the industry," Robert replied, his voice carrying absolute certainty. "When she tells me something will work, I trust her." The deference in that statement, Robert Blackwood trusting someone else's judgment publicly, shifted something in the room. The Morettis exchanged glances, then nodded. "We'll move forward with the partnership." Victory tasted like expensive wine, and Robert's hand warm on my lower back as we left. Back in the suite, adrenaline still coursing through me, we stood on the balcony with fresh drinks. Chicago sprawled below us, colder than home but beautiful in its sprawling lights. "You were incredible tonight," Robert said quietly. "I was doing my job." "You were magnificent." He turned to face me. "They came in skeptical and left ready to hand over $50 million based largely on your presentation." Pride bloomed warm in my chest. "We make a good team." "We do." Something vulnerable flickered across his face. "I never let anyone close, Laura. Closeness is a weakness in my world. It's leverage, liability, danger." "But..." He stopped, jaws working. "But you..." He stopped, jaws working. "But you're already close. You've been close since I caught you in that hallway, maybe before, and I don't know how to want you at a safe distance anymore." My breath caught. "Robert," he continued, words spilling out like a confession, "I've noticed your health declining weeks before you collapsed. The weight loss, the exhaustion, it added me, not knowing how to help without overstepping, without revealing that I'd been watching you too closely, caring too much. You could have said something. And what? Excuse me, Miss Chen, but I've been obsessing over you for months and I've noticed your boyfriend is destroying you?" His laugh was bitter. "I've been protective of you since long before you fell. I just didn't understand why until that moment I caught you and realized I couldn't let you go." The raw honesty undid me. I closed the distance between us, rising on my toes, and kissed him. For a heartbeat, Robert froze. Then his restraint shattered. His hands cupped my face, angling my mouth against his, and the kiss turned fierce, hungry, 3 weeks of tension finally breaking. I melted into him, fingers tangling in his hair, tasting scotch and want and something deeper. He kissed like he did everything, with complete control and devastating intensity. Then he pulled back, breathing hard, his forehead resting against mine. "Not here," he said roughly. "Not like this." "Robert." "When I have you, Laura," his voice dropped, intimate and commanding, "it'll be in our home, our space, where there's no question about tomorrow, where you wake up beside me and know exactly what it means." Frustration and appreciation warred in my chest. "You're making this very difficult." "Good, because easy doesn't suit us." He stepped back, putting necessary distance between us, and I wanted to scream and kiss him and thank him all at once. "Soon," he promised, reading my expression. I swear. The return flight was torture. We sat across from each other, papers spread between us, pretending to work while the air crackled with unfinished business. Every glance held promise. Every accidental brush of hands felt electric. Robert's assistant had included champagne for celebrating the Moretti deal. We drank in charged silence, and I watched Robert's throat work as he swallowed, thought about kissing the column of his neck, and felt heat flood through me. "You're staring," he said without looking up. "I'm observing. There's a difference." His eyes snapped to mine, dark with want. "Laura." "Soon," I echoed his promise. "I know, but I was tired of soon, tired of dancing around something inevitable, of restraint and protection and waiting for the perfect moment. I'd fallen completely for Robert Blackwood, dangerous, powerful, impossibly protective Robert who looked at me like something precious he had finally found, and I was done pretending otherwise. When we landed, when he walked me to the penthouse, when he pressed a kiss to my forehead and told me to rest, I made a decision. Soon wasn't soon enough. Tomorrow, I'd stop waiting for permission to want what was already mine. 3 weeks since I'd collapsed in that hallway. 3 weeks since my life had fractured and reassembled into something unrecognizable. I was strong again. Confidence, thriving in my position, commanding respect in boardrooms, making decisions that affected millions. The woman Marcus had tried to destroy was gone, replaced by someone harder, sharper, more certain of her worth. But the tension between Robert and me had become unbearable. Every day we worked side by side, professional and controlled. Every night we returned to the penthouse we now openly shared, circling each other like magnets fighting their own polarity. He'd kiss my forehead, my temple, my hand, never my mouth, never more. His restraint was killing us both. Late Sunday evening, I found him in his study, empty whiskey glass on the desk, jacket discarded, tie loosened. He stood at the window overlooking the city, silhouetted against the lights, tension radiating from every line of his body. I'd made my decision. "Why are you keeping your distance, Robert?" I closed the door behind me. "We both know what's between us." He didn't turn. "Laura, don't." I crossed to him, close enough to feel his heat. "Don't tell me it's for my protection. Don't tell me I need more time. I'm recovered. I'm strong. So tell me the real reason." His jaw clenched. "Because I'm terrified." The admission hung in the air, raw and unexpected. "Of what?" I asked softly. Robert finally turned to face me, and the vulnerability in his eyes stole my breath. "Of this. Of you. Of caring this much about someone for the first time in my life." His hand came up, hovering near my face without touching. "In my world, caring is dangerous. It's leverage. It's a weakness. People I care about become targets." "I'm already a target. You put security on me yourself." "That's different." "How?" I caught his hand, pressed it to my cheek. "How is protecting me from a distance any safer than this?" "Because if something happened to you," his voice cracked, "if someone hurt you because of me, because of what you mean to me, I'd burn the world down, and I'm not sure I'd stop burning until there was nothing left." The intensity of it should have frightened me. Instead, it ignited something fierce in my chest. "I'm not afraid of your world, Robert." I stepped closer, eliminating the space between us. "I'm afraid of not knowing what we could be. I'm afraid of this thing between us dying from caution instead of living despite the danger." His control was fracturing. I could see it in the tension of his shoulders, the clench of his jaw, the way his free hand fisted at his side. "You've changed everything," he said roughly. "How I see my life, what I want, who I want to be. I look at you and I don't recognize myself anymore." "Then show me." I rose on my toes, my mouth inches from his. "Stop protecting me from yourself. Let me choose you, all of you, with full knowledge of what that means." "Laura." His name was a prayer and a warning. I'm choosing you, Robert. Now choose me back. His control shattered. Robert's mouth crashed down on mine, fierce and consuming, weeks of restraint exploding between us. His hands tangled in my hair, angling my head for deeper access, and I moaned into his mouth, finally touching him the way I'd been dreaming about. He walked me backward until my spine hit the wall, his body pressing against mine, solid and demanding. The kiss turned desperate, hungry, 3 weeks of denial combusting into need. "Are you sure?" he asked against my lips, giving me one last chance to retreat. I've never been more sure of anything. Something dark and possessive flared in his eyes. Then he kissed me again, and the world narrowed to his mouth, his hands, his body against mine. He lifted me effortlessly, my legs wrapping around his waist as he carried me to his bedroom. We shed clothes between kisses, frantic and graceless and perfect. When he laid me on his bed, the same bed I'd imagined countless times, his eyes devoured me. "You're so beautiful," he breathed, "so strong, so mine." "Yours," I agreed, "but Robert, you're just as much mine." The power dynamic shifted in that moment, not protector and protected anymore, equals, partners, two people choosing each other completely, consequences be damned. When he moved over me, into me, the intensity stole my breath. Robert made love like he did everything, with absolute focus and devastating thoroughness. He learned my body with the same meticulous attention he applied to business deals, finding every place that made me gasp, every touch that made me arch into him, and when I shattered beneath him, his name on my lips, he followed me over the edge with his name on his. Afterwards, we lay tangled together, sweat slicked and breathing hard. Robert traced idle patterns on my skin, along my ribs, across my hip, down my spine, like he was memorizing me through touch. "I've never brought anyone into my life like this," he said quietly to the darkness, "never wanted to." "And now?" I traced the tattoos on his forearm, following the Norse runes. "Now I can't imagine my life without you in it." He tilted my face up to his. "You understand what that means, what you're agreeing to by being with me. I understand that your world is complicated, dangerous, that there are parts of your business I'm choosing not to know about, that being yours means accepting all of that. And you accept it?" I thought about Marcus, about 3 years of feeling small and afraid, about Robert catching me when I fell, protecting me, seeing me, about the woman I'd become in his orbit, stronger, fiercer, more myself than I'd ever been. "I accept you," I said simply, "all of you, the empire you've built, the power you wield, the darkness you carry. I see it all, Robert, and I'm still here." His arms tightened around me. "You're remarkable. I'm practical," I kissed his jaw, "and I'm falling in love with you." The words hung between us. I hadn't meant to say them, but they were true, and I'd never been good at lying. Robert was quiet for a long moment. Then, "I fell for you months ago. I've just been too terrified to admit it." Relief and joy flooded through me. "Not so terrifying now?" "Terrifying as hell," he kissed me softly, "but worth it. You're worth it." We fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, vulnerable and sated, and finally together. My last conscious thought was that everything had changed, that crossing this line meant no going back, but I didn't want to go back. I'd fallen for the most dangerous man I'd ever known, and somehow, in his arms, I'd never felt safer. I woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, and the unfamiliar weight of an arm across my waist. Robert. He was still there, still in bed, still holding me. My breath caught. In 3 weeks of living in his penthouse, of watching his routines, I'd learned Robert was always up before dawn. Coffee at 5:30, work by 6, the city barely awake while he commanded his empire. He never lingered, never paused. But now he lay beside me, propped on one elbow, watching me with an expression so soft it made my chest ache. "How long have you been awake?" I asked, my voice rough with sleep. "An hour, maybe more." His fingers traced my shoulder, down my arm. I didn't want to miss this. Miss what? You. Here. Real. He leaned down, kissed me gently. I kept thinking I'd wake up and you'd be gone, that I'd imagined all of it. I rolled toward him, pressing against the solid warmth of his body. "I'm real. This is real." I know, but something vulnerable lingered in his eyes, like he was still half convinced I might disappear. We stayed like that, tangled together in expensive sheets, as morning light painted the city gold. No walls between us, no distance, just skin and breath and the rare luxury of time. Eventually, Robert kissed my forehead and disappeared. I heard him in the kitchen, the domestic sounds of coffee brewing, plates clinking. He returned with a tray laden with breakfast, fruit, pastries, scrambled eggs that he'd clearly made himself. "Marie doesn't come in on Sundays," he explained, setting the tray carefully on the bed. "And I wanted to do this myself." We ate in comfortable silence, stealing glances and touches, the intimacy of it overwhelming. This was Robert stripped of armor, barefoot, shirtless, his dark hair mussed, tattoos on full display. Not the CEO, not the dangerous man with half the city in his pocket. Just Robert. Mine. "Tell me something," I said, setting down my coffee. "Something no one else knows." He was quiet for a long moment, his jaw working. Then, "I built this empire alone because everyone I loved died young. My parents were in a car accident when I was 16. My sister, 2 years later, had cancer. I had no one, nothing, just ambition and rage and a desperate need to prove I mattered." My heart clenched. "Robert." I learned not to let people close. Closeness meant loss. It meant vulnerability. His gray eyes found mine. So, I built walls. I made myself untouchable, convinced myself that strength meant solitude, that power meant not needing anyone. That sounds lonely. It was, but it was safe. He reached for my hand, lacing our fingers together. "Until you. You made me want more than just survival. You made me want a life worth living, not just a life worth protecting." Tears pricked my eyes. "Robert." "I've built an empire," he interrupted. "But empires are cold, Laura. Their power and control and isolation masquerading as success." He cupped my face, his thumb brushing my cheekbone. "You're warm. You're laughing and challenging, and the first person in 15 years who made me feel human again." I kissed him, pouring everything I couldn't say into the press of lips, the slide of tongue. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, Robert's expression had shifted, determined, almost nervous. "Stay with me," he said. "I am staying." "No, I mean really stay. Not as someone I'm protecting, not as my employee, though you'll always have that position if you want it. As my partner in everything." His voice dropped. "Build a life with me, Laura. Be the person who knows every part of me, even the dark parts. Let me be the person who stands beside you, not just in front of you." My breath caught. "What are you asking?" "I'm asking forever. For mornings like this, for coming home to you, for building something together that's ours, not just mine." His gray eyes held mine, vulnerable and certain at once. "Yes," I said simply, "to all of it." Relief and joy transformed his face. He kissed me deeply, then pulled back, resting his forehead against mine. "There are things we need to discuss, practicalities." Ever the businessman. His mouth quirked. "Someone has to be.
You keep your position, I won't compromise your career, but our relationship will become public knowledge. People will talk. Let them. My world is dangerous, Laura. You know that. I'll protect you from it while including you in my life, but there will be complications. I know, I traced the line of his jaw. I'm not naive about what being with you means, but I'm choosing it anyway. Choosing you. We'll move you officially into the penthouse. Your things from the guest suite. Make this our space, not just mine. Our space, I repeated, testing the words. Our life. Yes, his arms tightened around me. Everything I have, everything I am, it's yours now. My home, my trust, my protection, my heart. The vulnerability in that last word undid me. And you have mine. All of me, Robert. The strength you helped me find, the woman I'm becoming, it's all yours. He kissed me, and this time it didn't stop with kissing. We made love slowly, thoroughly, every touch a promise. Different from last night's desperation, this was certainty, permanence, the physical manifestation of forever. Afterward, tangled together and sated, Robert traced patterns on my bare back. You're the only person I'll ever let this close, the only one I want this close. Good, I kissed his chest, right over his heart, because I'm not going anywhere. We stayed in bed as morning turned to afternoon, ignoring the world outside. For the first time in his professional life, Robert missed work, didn't check his phone, didn't review contracts, didn't command his empire. He chose me instead. And the significance wasn't lost on either of us. Robert Blackwood, who'd built his life on control and discipline and never showing weakness, choosing to spend the day in bed with me.
2 months since I'd collapsed in that conference room. 2 months since my life had shattered and reformed into something I never could have imagined. Now, mornings meant waking in Robert's arms. Days meant commanding boardrooms as his chief financial strategist, making decisions that shaped his empire. Evenings meant coming home to our penthouse, our space, and shedding the armor we both wore for the world. We were a unit, professional and personal, partners in every way that mattered. I'd stopped being the woman who survived on coffee and fear. I was thriving, financially independent, professionally respected, genuinely loved. The transformation was so complete that sometimes I barely recognized myself. But Robert saw me. He'd always seen me, even when I couldn't see myself. Today, though, something was different. Robert had been mysterious all day, distracted in meetings, checking his phone with unusual frequency. When I'd asked about it, he'd simply smiled and kissed my temple, murmuring, "You'll see." Now, as evening approached, he appeared in my office doorway. "Wear something beautiful," he said without preamble. "I have something special planned." My pulse quickened. "Robert, what?" "Trust me." His gray eyes held that rare softness he showed only to me. "Please?" I changed into a deep emerald dress that hugged my restored curves, the woman in the mirror confident and strong. When I emerged, Robert was waiting in a charcoal suit that made him look like sin personified. "Beautiful," he breathed, offering my hand. He led me not to the penthouse, but to the elevator, pressing a button I'd never noticed. We ascended past his floor, higher still, until the doors opened onto the building's rooftop. I gasped. The city spread below us like a glittering kingdom, sunset painting the sky in oranges and purples. String lights crisscrossed the space, creating a canopy of stars. A table set for two sat in the center, surrounded by roses, deep red, lush and fragrant. "Robert, here is where my empire touches the sky," he said quietly, his hand warm at the small of my back. "I wanted to share it with you, all of it." We sat, and he poured wine with hands that trembled slightly. Robert Blackwood, feared and powerful, was nervous. "I have something for you," he said after we'd eaten. Several things, actually. He produced a small box, opened it to reveal keys. These are to the penthouse. Your name is officially on the deed now. It's not my home anymore, Laura. It's ours. Emotion tightened my throat. Robert, I'm not finished. Another envelope. Full access to accounts. Financial autonomy restored and protected. What's mine is yours, completely. You don't have to... And this, a final key, elegant and silver. Key to your permanent office, not because you work for me, but because you work with me, as my equal, my partner in building this empire. Each gift was symbolic. Trust, partnership, equality. Everything I'd lost with Marcus, Robert was giving back tenfold. Why? I whispered. Robert stood, came around the table, and did something I never expected. He knelt before me. This powerful, feared man, the one who commanded empires and made grown men sweat, knelt at my feet and took my hands, in his. Because you saved me just as much as I saved you, he said, his voice rough with emotion. I was surviving, Laura, building an empire but living in isolation, convinced that strength meant solitude. Then you challenged my CFO in that meeting, and I saw you, really saw you. Your brilliance, your courage, your refusal to be diminished. Tears streaked down my face. I watched you nearly destroy yourself trying to survive Marcus. I caught you when you fell, but you're the one who taught me how to live again, how to want more than just power, how to build something worth having, instead of just something worth protecting. His gray eyes held mine, vulnerable and certain. I want to build a life with you. Everything I am, everything I have, I want to share with you. Not as my employee, not as someone I'm protecting, but as my equal partner in everything. His hands tightened on mine. Will you build a future with me, Laura? Will you be my partner in creating something extraordinary? I looked at him, this complex, dangerous, impossibly gentle man who'd caught me falling and given me back my strength. Accepting wasn't just about him. It was about accepting the woman I'd become, the life we were creating, the future that stretched before us, bright with possibility. Yes, I said, pulling him up to kiss him. Yes to everything. Yes to building a future. Yes to you, to us, to this life we're creating together. He kissed me deeply, sealing the promise. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against mine. I have plans, he said, for us, for the empire. I want to expand legitimately, with you as my equal partner. Build something sustainable, something meaningful. I want that too, I traced his jaw, and I want to use our resources for good, create opportunities, support causes that matter, build a legacy that's about more than just power. Together, he agreed. We're stronger together. We stood at the rooftop edge, his arms wrapped around me from behind, watching the city lights twinkle to life below. Our kingdom, our future. I walked into that meeting weak, broken, barely surviving. I collapsed, and in falling, I found everything I never knew I needed. A man who saw my strength when I couldn't, a partner who valued my mind as much as my heart, a love that transformed both of us. Thank you for falling. Thank you for letting me catch you. Thank you for choosing to stay. I turned in his arms, cupping his face. Thank you for catching me. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for loving me enough to help me love myself again. His kiss was tender, promising forever. I'd been too weak to speak, too weak to stand. I collapsed during that meeting, and the Mafia boss did something no one expected. He caught me, protected me, and loved me. And in doing so, he gave me back my strength, my voice, my life. From surviving on scraps to being protected, cherished, and loved by the most powerful man in the underworld, my journey had been unexpected, terrifying, and absolutely worth it. So that's my story. What do you think? Would you have trusted Robert? Would you have taken the risk of falling for someone so dangerous, so powerful, so completely outside the safe choices? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this one. Because here's what I learned. Sometimes falling is exactly what you need to do. Only when you fall do you discover who will catch you, who will fight for you, who will help you rise stronger than before. And Robert S. Jacob caught me in every way that mattered. He caught me, and he never let go. And I wouldn't have it any other way.